Good morning, my travel creator friends, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening to this. If you're watching on YouTube, I am outside my friend's Airbnb because I stayed in my camper on the street last night. Just keeping it so for real with you. Keeping it so for real. But that doesn't mean I'm not excited and here to chat with Emily. So, without further ado, enough from me. Let's hear from Emily.
So I am a freelance content marketer and creator, aspiring creator. I work with outdoor and travel businesses, brands, and creators on their marketing. I want to make their marketing look and feel so damn good and just, highlighting their adventures and really emphasizing on experience, creating value, and building a community.
Oh my gosh, we are like really similar in what we do.
I
How
I
fun.
know. I remember when you had messaged me and I'm just like, "No way." I'm like, "There's too many similarities." I'm like, "This is the best part of Instagram, of being able to meet so many like-minded people." So, I'm so
Totally. It is so good to be able to find other people who are doing similar things or thinking the same way because it's like, okay, finally somebody's like validating my insanity. Okay, Emily has come for us today with so many different myths that we're going to bust about what it takes to be successful as a freelancer or a business owner as you are working on getting to that stage or are already there. These are things that you are experiencing or have experienced or are still going through. Okay, I'm so excited. The first myth Emily has for us is freelancing is all about freedom. You get to work when you want and how you want. Okay, tell me why this is a myth. Break it down for us.
so it's a myth because it's not that black and white, right? There's so much gray area, and when I say freelancing to me is you're choosing a different type of path for income or getting to a certain point that you want to make income. So, to our creators, our business owners, our online entrepreneurs, online service providers, that's just the word that I decided to use because eventually we're freelancing until we've built some sort of business. And even I feel like when we're building a business, it's still somewhat freelancing. So that's I just kind of wanted to make that clear.
That
That's
is
how
so
I think of
good.
it. I think it's a myth, especially when you first start out, because there's so many things to do. And, while you do have a schedule where you can pick and choose, like, if you're better to work in the mornings or the afternoons or the evenings, like there's still commitments, there's still projects, there's still clients, there's still tasks. And so we still have to hold ourselves accountable to get those things done, right?
Yeah,
So
how
it is a myth, but there's a way around it where you can have that flexibility and freedom, but there's things and foundations that we need to put in place before then.
how dare you remind me of my to-do list? How dare you? There's such like a I was talking about this morning. There is such a delicate mental gymnastics you have to play every single day with yourself of like, okay, I have to do the work that literally is going to bring me money, but also sometimes I have to decide to not do that work so that I can do the work that I'm not being paid for right now, but I know I will be paid more money for later. And it is
Yeah.
so hard, and it's so hard. I learned this quote years ago, and I think about it all the time, and I frequently remind creators of it, is that the most addicting things are drugs and a consistent income, and once you kind of can, like, put yourself through money rehab to realize that it's okay to, like, slow down a little bit to then make something better because otherwise, speaking from personal experience, if you just get caught up in like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta do all this client work," there's always to do's, then you all of a sudden you spend like years building somebody else's business and like not really doing yours. And I think like for me, that's where I was stuck, like being a freelancer versus being like a business owner. And it's like such a hard thing to like shift from, okay, like I'm in charge, everybody. Hi. Like you are, I'm not just like your little content bitch. Okay. Now, it's just, like, such a mental shift. It's so interesting.
Yeah,
So
I mean, 'cause building a business definitely requires structure, time management, and a lot of discipline. So when you're building your business, like you said, I think it's very important to understand what it is that you need to get done now. And then you're still working on short term and long term goals of what you want out of your business. But you got to go through that like messy action before anything else to be like, okay, this is where I need to go. This is my plan. And also like to connect, right, with like minded people who are also going through similar things.
Oh, totally. I think like finding a community of people to go through this with is the most helpful thing ever because you think like because it's so and we'll get into this. Here I go. But there's it's so easy to like scroll on the internet and see XYZ person is doing some like amazing thing and they like made this digital product and now they're like a bajillionaire. But when you see that stuff, it's like, "Oh my gosh, there's nobody else out there struggling," or not necessarily struggling to get through, like, what we're working on right now or, like, figuring out the best way to do XYZ, and then once you find other people in the similar space, you're like, "Oh, yeah, everybody is kind of doing is there too, and it's all, like, a lie." Finding a community while you are building something is so important. For example, my communities I'm a part of. I am part of a group chat with a couple of other entrepreneurs, and we have meetups every so often where we each go around, we share a little win, we share a problem we're experiencing, and then we all kind of offer solutions. And it's so valuable. I always leave feeling better than when I came in, and it's so awesome to have a group of people that can help you through different problems you're dealing with or just people to bounce different ideas off of. Another podcast recommendation I have for you that right after this episode you're going to go listen to is called Entrepreneur Honestly, where we speak honestly about being an entrepreneur. It is my producer Marie's podcast, and she shares about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, like the real behind the scenes of it and how we can all get through that together. Highly recommend. There's a couple of episodes on there where I actually am the guest. So if you want more from me, but on the business side of things, even though we talk about some of that here, but more of the nitty gritty, I would go listen to Entrepreneur Honestly. I will leave the link for you below. There are so many 6-figure, 7-figure, even more figure business owners on social media that share about their success. And that's wonderful. But it can oftentimes feel a little unrelatable or like a little hard to get on their level. And so finding people around you that you can connect with, who you can actually see their growth happen, you can watch them be successful from the sidelines while cheering them on and vice versa, is so much more fun. Rather than just watching random people grow on the internet, that's fun too. And we all know people who we have seen randomly grow on the internet, but it feels so much better when it's people that we know and we love and are cheering for who are being successful. It makes being successful feel a lot less lonely. That made me also think about how really we always like make these huge to-do lists of like, okay, I need to do all these things in order to like get where I really want to be. But I've really noticed, and I actually started doing this, was like I made like a big brain dump and then I highlighted what the 20% is. Like, what is the absolute most important thing that has to get done that will help me get to there? Because it's like, okay, create this like email, but then the next task is actually the most important thing. That has been really helpful for me to like try and help me prioritize. But I think you're right in that the biggest and hardest thing is making yourself stick to a schedule because I think people assume that when you work for yourself, you can do whatever you want, and that is true. But if you want to keep doing whatever you want, you have to make yourself a schedule. Oh my gosh. Tell me about your schedule. I want to know. Do you have one?
Yes and no. It's a very high level schedule. So when I first started, I was like, one of my goals was I replaced my 9 to 5 income, but I want to work 4 days a week. So then I had like a 3 day weekend. And so my schedule, if I look at it on a week to week basis, Mondays are my days because if I want to hang out with friends and family and so forth, a lot of them do have a 9 to 5 job. So weekends just tend to be the time that you can spend with those people, right? But
Yeah.
Mondays are my days. Like I'm not checking my emails with client work. I'm working. This is where I always get mixed up. Is it in your business or on your business? The stuff that,
You are working when you're doing client work, you're working in your business. When you're
okay,
doing You this is Mondays are your on your business day.
On my business days, yes. And I always get self-conscious 'cause I'm like, "Is it in your business or on your business?" So,
I
Mondays
know.
are on my business. So, I'm working with stuff that is not, gonna give me Instagram likes and views today or tomorrow. It's going to be a few weeks or and if not, like, a month or 2 down the road as to what I'm working on. It's like my longer term goal. And then it also allows me where to get those last minute things like, "Oh, shit, I need to get this done for tomorrow," or "I need to send this," or "I need to follow up with this email." So Mondays are my day, which I love, and I get really excited about Mondays. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, mid-morning to going into the afternoons is a lot of my client work that and client calls and any, like, front-facing stuff, and I love the mornings, like, I can get out of business, my coffee's preset, and I can just get work right away. Like, mornings are quiet, no one's bugging you, no one's doing whatever, it all turns around, like, by 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then that's when it gets into it, right? And then Fridays are kind of my flex day because I always said that I wanted to work a 4-day work week, and so I really try and keep Fridays as a flex day. So if I have the time where I wanna work, then I will work, and if I want to go on an adventure or travel for something or do something, then Fridays are that weekend day or weekend start, we'll call it.
Okay, I'm actually gonna pause you right here because I want you to think about what your dream work day, or not even work day, what your dream day, I guess work day, and dream work week look like. Does it look like working late at night because that's when your brain actually does its best thing? Or is it working early in the morning? Is it exploring in the afternoon? Whatever your thing is, I encourage you to journal about it so that you can figure out how to actually get to your dream week. And is there anybody out there living their dream work week? If you are, I want to know about it. I need to know about it. Come and tell me. Tell me how's it going? Is there anything you would change? Anyway, use this as a prompt, as a pause to do some journaling or even just go on a walk and think about it. Just don't even take any headphones. Just think about it of what your work week looks like, what it should look like. And if you have any control over your weekly schedule, if you feel like you don't have a lot of control, where can you put in the control? Like when you get home from your work, can you do other things? I want to know. I have tried so hard to make myself some sort of schedule to follow. Like so this is very inspiring because I really do try and stick as well to like I know when my brain is working and I definitely know when it's not. And so I try and do like that heavy work when it's working. But because I like lived in a tent for like months, it got so effed. And it was like, okay, this is the only time you have. Basically, yeah, that was an absolute nightmare. Cannot recommend that experience to anyone. So this is really like inspiring and encouraging to try and now that I have some sort of normalcy to try and like make a better schedule. But one thing I have noticed, and even like living in a tent taught me this, as well as just like traveling in general, is that when I schedule time away, and this made me think of like your Friday flex days where you're giving yourself permission to do whatever you want. Because I was reading, oh my God, I can't remember where I read it, but it was about one of the reasons why we procrastinate hard tasks. And it's because we don't trust ourselves to allow ourselves to have fun, unscheduled time to like do whatever we want after we do the thing. And that's why we put things off because we don't trust that we'll actually have time to have fun. And I think that that is so important to like, if you can give yourself that flex time, because I have noticed that when I do, I have like so many better ideas. I have like the clarity that comes from doing nothing. Nothing is insane. And you don't realize that until you allow yourself to not do anything. It's so crazy. That's so cool. That's so cool.
My boyfriend and I, we do a lot of camping and backcountry canoe tripping, here in Canada. It's a fun thing, especially in Ontario. And there's been multiple times where we don't have service with our cell phones and we're just paddling along for the day or like we're portaging or we're at camp. And I'll like pull out my phone and I'll be typing and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I have an idea. I need to get it down
I
because
know.
when I sit at my computer and I'm like, what content am I gonna talk about? Like, it's so easy And I'm sure you can relate when you work with your clients, it's so much more fun to work on your clients' work than it is for your own, and it's so much easier and more enjoyable. So, I don't know about you, but I give myself a really hard time and a lot of that those negative emotions always kick in. So, I have a running list in just my phone notes app of just, "Hey, this," or like, "This reminded me of this trending audio," or "This reminded me of this thing that's going around," or "This hot topic." And then when I do come down, I'm like, "Okay, I have at least, a draft list that I can start putting stuff out." And so the blog post that I sent you over, that was one of the things where I'm like, if I were to go back, 5, 6 years ago, what would I want to know going into this online world? So
Oh my god, that's so good. That's so good. I also have an Apple Note, list. Mine is called The Dumping Ground. I gave it a title and, I just
Nice.
that's what it is, and then I pull it up on my computer and I do what I need to do with it. But that has been I also have, my boyfriend text me things a lot. We'll be, doing something, I'm like, "Text me this reminder," and then I'm like, "I'll know what it means." But yeah, that happens all the time. And I think it's funny because our, best ideas never happen when we're sitting in front of the computer, ever, never, never, ever
Yeah.
have I been, sitting here and I'm like, "Oh my god, yes,
One
that's it." That has it literally never happened to me, ever, and we never, allow ourselves to not be sitting in front of it to get all of the good ideas, but this also brings me well, we're still talking about myth 1, which is so great, but I love this idea of let's talk about building backwards of you want to make X dollars a month. So then you need to work backwards to figure out how to do that. Is that something you have always done? Is that what you wish you would have told yourself years ago when you started? I think that's so clever. I want to know more. That wasn't a great question, but if you have any
No, that's
insight
fine.
on.
So this is something that has been more recently because I have been very focused on how much time is it taking me to complete XYZ? And this is specifically around for my client deliverables, because as you go through freelancing and building a business, your services, your packages, your rates, all those things are going to change so many times. And that is okay. That's again like taking messy action and just moving through it versus having a plan and then implementing. You take messy action, right? So I'm at a point now where with my client services, I want to diversify my income a bit more. I want to do more content creation for myself, UGC, digital products, those sort of things. So, what has helped is knowing what is my guaranteed income. And I've actually switched this to a quarterly basis. This was a friend recommendation because on a monthly basis, my payment terms with one client, it might be 7. With a UGC deal, it might be 30. And so it doesn't really give me what I'm making each month because you invoice this month and you might
Mhm.
get paid 30 days later, right? So it kind of helps with, okay, in Q1, how much money am I making? If I divide that by approximately how many hours that I want to work, does that fulfill the time that putting into work that week? Does that make sense?
Mhm. Mhm. I think that's a really good way of looking at. I love the idea of quarterly. I would never think about that.
Yeah, I'm very
Whoa.
happy that my friend told me that because I would look in my QuickBooks and I'm like, "What do you mean I only made this much money?" But it's like I'm still waiting for money to come in. I get paid for the next month, so it's at like it doesn't align. So it's just
Yeah.
easier to be like, "Okay, Q1, 2, 3, 4. This is what I wanna make. This is the projects. This is my client work. This is how much money I'm making in that time." And then approximately month to month or biweekly, however you wanna pay yourself, right?
I love that idea. I think one of the most, jarring things for me from leaving, a real job to working on my business is that you are getting paid typically, once a month rather than, twice a
Yeah.
week. It's like, "Okay, great, it's coming in," but then, oh my god, then you pay somebody a lot of money to, edit your website or whatever, and then it's like, oh. It just changes the way you think about all of those things because the money is coming, but it's coming at a different time. What a mess. What a freaking mess, you know?
'Cause it's so hard when you're in it and you're working, you're like there's some days where you're like, "Oh, I'm doing so much work," and then you look at what you made and you're like, "Really? That was it?" And then other times you'll get a really fun, cool project and, you get paid maybe a bit more than normal, and so there's too much inconsistency of
Mhm.
emotion to what is just supposed to be more logical, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Approximately, like, what is my guaranteed income? What am I making over these next few months or months, whatever it is? How many hours is that typically going to take me? Divide that down into how many hours that I want to work per day or per week. Does that make sense as to what I'm getting or what I want to be paid?
Yeah. Just working backwards, if you're like, great, if my income goal is X per quarter, X per month, well, then what do I need to make to do that? And then
Exactly.
that's the easy part. And then the hard part is like, okay, great, here's this number. Like, let me determine all the avenues I need to take to hit it. That's where it gets difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of money, the myth you also have for us is that you'll hit six figures in your first year. I have so many things to say about this, Emily.
Okay.
I will say what comes to mind immediately for me just by reading that headline is that the internet has absolutely ruined us in the sense of our self belief because it's so easy to see or even assume or have feelings about XYZ person who has made this much money, or people are just even like explicit about how much money they make, which is fine.
Yep.
But I think there's so many people who share content that is misleading to how much work goes in behind making that much money. I'm waiting for the day that somebody sends me a message who is listening to this podcast because I've said this before. I want to be proved wrong that if somebody goes to ChatGPT and makes a digital product and sells it and they make 80K, let me know. For real. Let me know. If that's what it takes, if that's it,
I know.
we would all be living our best lives, wouldn't we? And so that is the kind of content that makes me angry. I love the idea of empowering people to go like use the tools you have to create and sell something online, but there's like a massive misconception that it is that easy. That's
Absolutely.
what makes me mad.
When you first start something, it's going to be very hard. And then the second or third year you are doing that thing, it's going to be hard too, but it's going to be different hard. So it's always going to be hard. But I encourage you to look down the mountain of how far you've come. Working for a boss is hard. Working for yourself is hard. Finding a remote job is hard. Traveling is hard. Everything is really hard. We just have to choose your hard. What hard do you want? I think that's a really powerful question.
Yes. And there's a very, very, very small percentage that it might be more of like quote unquote that overnight success. But a lot of those come with, if you look at their past, they have 2 to 3 failed businesses or failed accounts that they've learned. And this is just their fresh new face that they've taken all of those skill sets and trial and error and messy action and they've implemented into something new. The second part is they might just have a really, really good connection where it put them in front of a huge audience or, the chances of the virality, like there's so much that can be taken into it. But I used to call myself a digital strategist because I work in digital strategy as a whole with digital marketing, right? So where that's content creation, website, anything that fell under the umbrella, but that whole trend of I became a digital marketer overnight, and I just decided to have, like, a Canva ChatGPT thing. I'm
It's a
like,
cult. It's a cult.
I don't
I
like
think it's a
I no
cult.
longer want to be associated with that, so I no longer use digital marketing, digital strategy in my copy or in my content because it's put a sour mouth like, a sour like, whatever that saying is, that I don't wanna be associated with that. So it is so frustrating, and my same friend who told me about the quarterly way to track your money and stuff, she also has a really funny YouTube, channel where she essentially, like, dissects different scams on the coaching industry where this is how you make $10,000 and
Stop it.
yeah, so I will send her information. I mean, her name's Danielle Ryan, and so her YouTube channel is fantastic, and she interviews people that have unfortunately have fallen for that, and she'll just dissect, like, the scammy people on this online world, but it's a good YouTube channel, so shout out to
Whoa.
for that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, if you send me the link, we'll put it in the show notes and the description of this. That yeah. Okay, I know what I'm gonna be watching later. That's so amazing. Okay. I can't agree more with you that the truth of freelancing is more of a long game than a quick fix. I love that you mentioned diversifying your income is one of the best ways to do that just because you give yourself more chances to make more money. And some of them can be really easy. Like I am working on a lot of digital products this year,
Yep.
and it's easy for me to figure out what to create because I have an audience who tells me what they want, or I can ask them, or I have like hundreds of content ideas that people have said or responded to in a positive way so that I know, okay, great, they're valid ideas. But that is kind of what I'm starting to do.
And you also have the experience. You've worked with one-on-one clients to deliver tangible results to your clients. So therefore you have that experience, right? And I think a lot of digital products have to come from experience where you've helped people, you've overcome something, you've done something, but we need that experience. And typically when we do one-on-one client work, especially when we're new, we normally undercharge ourselves. We don't, ask for what we're paid for. We typically work more hours. And so, yeah, I hope that's making sense where
Mhm.
diversifying your income sooner than later. And obviously, you want like your product suite to make sense, but it does go hand in hand because eventually, and it sounds we're in a very similar position where I still love my clients. I still want to have that like one on one client facing work and to do projects and so forth. But I also want to put time into digital products that I can create content for. And so, yes, that digital product might be a one and done, but then there's still time and effort that I have to market it on a continuous basis.
Mhm.
But it's a different type of work that we get to do, right? We're not sitting at the computer
Totally.
having client calls or having to put like our physical hourly time in.
You reminded me of when you were talking about how when you start to work with one-on-one with clients, it's so easy to be like, this is my hourly rate. And it's like something super low because we often undervalue ourselves as well as, like you said, put in more hours. And I think that when people start building a business, especially if they've like consumed content on the internet about it, their perception, this is me definitely projecting, is that it can take so much, like, it's hard work. You gotta, like, stay up all night and wake up early and, like, be everything for everybody all of the time, and so that, I wonder if there's a link between that mentality and pricing yourself low because you think it has to be super hard to do, rather than, like, you can let it be easy, you can let it be so much bigger than what you think. Like, I think a lot of people, like, get stuck thinking really small at first, and they're like, "I'm just gonna take this, like, 2% change over year over
Right.
year, year over year," versus, like, "This is what I'm doing, and I'm gonna change it." This also reminds me of I read this book called 10X is Easier Than 2X. Have you heard of this book?
I have. It's on my list. I haven't read it yet.
Okay. Just reading the first, like, 15 pages alone, like, blew my mind. It is so interesting and so true, and basically the premise is that it's easier to do 10x of things than is to do like 2x. So for example, like let's say somebody's income goal is like $10,000 a month and right now they're making like $5,000 a month. The 2x mindset is like, okay, I'm just going to start charging a little bit more year over year for my clients. And the 10x mindset is like, this is my goal and I'm going to ignore everything else until I hit that goal. Or like, I'm going to drastically change my to dos and my priorities until I hit that goal. And it's like, once I read that and somebody said that out loud, well, in my head to me, I was like, yeah, okay, this doesn't have to be like hard. This doesn't have to be like as hard as we're making it.
Right.
And you can just go for it because there's a million other people who have as well. That's also been really validating for me is I'm like, I see things that people sell or like watch 10 minutes of Shark Tank and you're like, okay, I can do anything. I can like sell anything. If these people are making this crap, it's so funny. Okay. Myth 3. Freelancing is easy and requires no skills. Tell me the truth. Is it true?
No, definitely not. And it shouldn't be easy and it should require skills. Because again, freelancing typically you go into it with one-on-one work, right? And I feel like that's where, again, I said, you start freelancing to build a business to freelance to build a business. Like it's just a very, not a straight line, right? There's a lot of like squiggles in that. And you have to become new and try things and embrace the cringe and all those things that people are saying and be consistent and whatever. But no, it's not easy. It's actually, it is very hard. But again, that perception that there's always like negative things about it too is I get to work anywhere from Bali on a beach and I'm only working 2 hours a day. And it's like, well, were you working only 2 hours a day when you first started your freelancing business journey? No, most likely not. You are probably now in a position that you have a team, you have way better understanding of skills, you have a bigger budget to market. Like there's so many things that go into it. And freelancing should not be easy because then everybody can do it. I mean, everybody should try it at some point, whether, you want to make a little bit of extra money but no, it's not easy.
No, it's not. I think the grand premise of having a digital online business is simple. It is simple, but it's not easy, meaning you have this skill and you're like, great, I'm going to have this skill and I'm going to write out what I can do with this skill and I'm going to get in front of people to ask them to buy it. That is very simple. That is very simple, but it is when you take a step back and kind of zoom out, it's like there are so many little pieces of advice along the way that like, will make this easier if you do this thing or don't do this thing or use this and not that. Like the advice is insane and it's overwhelming. And here we are talking about more advice. So
I
sorry.
no, exactly. And I think, and maybe this is something to add to it where no two people, no two businesses are going to be the same. Like, example, you and I, we have a lot of similarities in the type of clients that we work with and what we want out of our businesses, but our businesses are nowhere near the same. Our journeys are going to be nowhere near the same. But that's where I think you have to invest in your growth. You have to lean into your strengths. You have to be realistic about what it is that you want.
Okay, let's talk about how you approach it. So you just mentioned that investing in your growth. Okay, yes, you must always be learning and evolving, especially if you are freelancing down this path of anything digital marketing world because it is constantly changing. Like literally this afternoon, Instagram, they just updated their ratio aspect. Emily, I have created content for February 2 weeks ago for clients, and now I have to go spend my afternoon doing it again because now it won't fit. So, stuff like that, like you have to constantly be paying attention. You can't just like, here's this graphic with like so many words on it in Times New Roman, send, and
Yeah.
oh my God. I think, okay, tell me some of the ways, or like, what are some really good, maybe courses you've taken, or like things you've listened to, or videos, or like people or resources you're always like, oh my God, I feel like learning something. Let me go see what this person has to say.
So one creator that I adore, and I've probably binged all of her podcast episodes and YouTube videos time and time again. Her name's Katie Steckley,
Love her. She's
right?
great.
Yes. And I like her because she's real. It's authentic. It's just, you were a cringy teenager starting on YouTube and you've always had this passion. And she talks about not only how to grow as a content creator, a business owner, but a lot of those conversations that are not so forward facing. Like it's not about just making your marketing great time and time again. Like separately, I just listened to a podcast episode on changing how to understand like your MRR, like your recurring income. So it's like the back end stuff where, hey, okay, I'm trying to diverse my income. I want to take on other projects. I don't want to do as much client facing work. What do I need to put in place behind the scenes to make it worthwhile for myself in 2025, right? Going back to those digital products, like how many digital products do I need to sell on a consistent basis that will give me X amount of income over this next quarter or over this next year? And those are things that we easily get so excited about, the forward facing things, like all the pretty stuff that we just put out and, oh my God, I just created this amazing reel, or, I'm on this podcast episode and whatever, but what's actually moving your business? What are you working on or understanding your numbers? in how to grow, and do they match with what you're putting into your marketing and so forth?
I'm so glad you talked about this because if I could give one piece of advice, it would be to do the boring work of like your content should be fun, but your system should be so boring. It should be so, and it's the part that nobody wants to do. But oh my God, if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I would say, please, God, learn how to use the CRM you are paying for monthly over and over again. Go watch a 60-minute YouTube video and fix it. Because now here I am. I've made it like years using this system and I'm like, ooh, I like don't even know where to find like the invoice thing I use every month
Yes.
anymore. And so now I'm cleaning it up because what happened is, okay, I started a business. People were like, okay, cool, I'll hire you. Then I got really busy and didn't clean up the back
Yes.
end processes. And now here we are having to slow down to clean up the back end junk that we should have just done in the first place. But it's that's like not even was not even on my radar, like not even fun or something to think about when you're like first starting because it's way too fun to create and way too fun to think of all these different things. And it is not fun at all to do the work that really matters. I think that's so true. Like honestly, if someone is listening to this and they're like editing a reel, just like stop and like go fix something in your back end because I promise it is so worth it if you can like properly segment your leads than it is to create another piece of content. Promise.
Yeah.
So,
So I just put out a new freebie and it's called the Adventure Blueprint. And so I use Squarespace as my website. And it's been a while since I've did the whole funnel freebie style. It's
oh,
been a
Emily, I'm cleaning this up right now. It sucks.
No, I was like in the moment, I'm like drinking coffee, enjoying, and I'm creating. I'm like, this freebie is going to be amazing. I have everything. Like, I chose it to be aesthetically as pleasing as possible because I'm not the greatest with that stuff, but I made it to like the content in it is valuable and it helps with what we're talking about right now and just understanding like foundations, fundamentals that you need to put into your content specific. But so then I'm like, okay, it's done. I'm like, shit. No, I have to go and create a new list segment in my email list. I have to then build it out in Squarespace. I have to make a link in Canva. I have to create my cover photos, but then resize it 3 different times. I have to create a welcome email sequence, a second sequence. And so I'm like, shit, there's like another like
I
few
know.
hours worth of work. And then that's where I'm like, no, this is where, because you want the most important, regardless of whatever is in that freebie or that guide or whatever else that you're selling, you want your customer or client to still have a flawless like customer journey. Because if they get frustrated, we live in the Amazon days, we live in like the scrolling days. People want it quick, people want it fast. If it's too hard to get to, they're not getting like they don't want it anymore.
Totally. Totally.
Even if you're not ready to send a newsletter, like actual content in your newsletter, you should still be collecting email addresses. And you can just do this using something simple, like a Google form. But to really be an A-plus overachiever, I would adopt a CRM, a client management system, and set up your form through that client management system. I use HoneyBook. I also have a referral link. I can get you like 30% off or something crazy. So if you are interested in using HoneyBook, let me know and I can refer you to that. I'll just leave my link below in the show notes if you are like, heck yeah, I need HoneyBook. I find it great. There's also a lot of resources on how to optimize HoneyBook because it's such a popular option. But I would set up your email address collecting form through there. They have something called lead forms or contact form. I would do a lead form where you can collect email addresses there even if you're not ready to send anything, because when you are ready to send something, you want people to send it to. So you'll have a list of people there for you. I also have a 7-day newsletter challenge where I teach you how to create and send a newsletter to people who love you in 1 week. So you can do all of that in 1 week if you want. The link for that below will also be in the show notes if you want to start a newsletter this week.
What do you use to send your emails?
Squarespace. I try and keep everything in it. It's not the prettiest, but I'm just in one platform and I'm trying to be minimalistic in my platforms as to what I'm using.
Absolutely. because I use Squarespace as well, but I have, like, I also use Honeybook and Kit, and so what is going on right now is I am making them all work together in a better way because it's really messy, and I think at times I've, like, "Okay, somebody downloads this thing," and then it's like, "Did they really get into the right spot that I need them to get into?" Is, like, that's what comes when you just add more software. So, setting it up in the beginning is, like, wildly helpful for so many
Yeah.
reasons.
And just knowing that there's more beyond the pretty and
Yeah.
what you're putting out or what you're creating. There's a lot of time and effort because you gotta, write out that email draft and make sure it aligns with what you're doing and yeah.
It's never as like we said, it's simple to create a little digital product and talk about it and get people to sign up for it, but it is not easy to figure out every single step somebody has to take to do that. And the problem is that there's a million different ways you can do it, but removing as much friction as possible from somebody wanting it to then actually getting it is amazing. What do you do? Okay, this is a genuine question. When you have, because I personally am trying to know if there's a better way, but when you create a digital product and you have it in Canva and it looks great, are you ever sharing that link from, how you can like share Canva links with people? Are you ever sharing that link with people for their digital products? Or are you always like downloading it as a PDF and then having them access
So
it somewhere else as a PDF?
this one that I did, there's a template link. So then they can create a new template, whatever, however you want to put it, out of
Okay.
what you made.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So that makes sense for them to have the Canva link, yeah. Because sometimes I see, like, I will download a freebie from somebody and it takes me directly to their Canva design instead of, like, downloading the PDF, you know?
I don't know. I like to give the Canva link because I don't know if I'd print it. And then I don't think my PDF thing is set up for me to like type in it on my computer.
Mm, mhm.
Another thing
So
to my
true.
where I'm like, I don't want to do that right now.
Totally, that's, like, yeah. That's so
Even
real.
but then that's the deterrent. That's like if I download something and you're giving me a PDF on my computer, I don't have it set up. So I might print it one day and be like, "Oh yeah, I should like go through this." But if it's on a PDF, I know I'm not uh, yeah. So
Okay, that is so interesting. That is such good insight. Okay, we also, speaking of freelancing, saying it requires no skills, we need to lean into our strengths. Tell me more if if somebody's a travel creator out there and they're like, cool, I think I know enough to sell a digital product or create one, but that's all the thoughts I have right now on that, and I don't know what else to do. What advice would you give them about that and their strengths?
So with your strengths, I think that that would be your validating digital product in that, right? You can help your audience by providing them value, helping them with a problem, pain point, whatever that gap that you're filling for a certain group of people. The way that you present it, I would do with what you're comfortable because I think that there's also a big opportunity for us to constantly get out of our comfort zone to get better in different things. But I would start off with going back to like the simplicity and just what are you good at? How could you deliver this in the best way possible at this time? Because the nice thing with digital products is it can grow, it can evolve, it can like same with your services, anything, right? That's I think the two areas that I would lean into for strengths. Like what are you known for? In your niche, your expertise, your area of where you're a content creator, and how can you deliver that with value? Because especially if you're putting a price point behind it, like there's nothing worse than getting something and you're just like, I got nothing out of it, right? So
Yeah.
what value are you providing? I think that those would be the two strengths to get. And then the formats, the communication, that would all be preference in what works for you. So yeah, I'm agreeing.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. That's so true. Oh my gosh, how the heck do we even tackle talking about setting realistic expectations as a freelancer? I don't know. I love your point about how really, like, I think it's so weird. I remember leaving like my job and then having more unstructured time to kind of do things. It felt like so wrong to like in the middle of the day kind of do nothing. Like that felt wrong. there's so many expectations. Like, it could be expectations about we talked about money, it could be, like, around your structure, I don't know. But what advice could you possibly give someone on, like, here is what I would do to set realistic expectations for yourself in your aspiring business that you're working on right now?
Right. And I think that stems from exactly like, what's your goal? What are you wanting to do? Because again, freelancing to me could be anyone who's, they could be working full time and they want to start a side hustle, or they want to start growing as a content creator and start monetizing or digital products or so forth. But then you could be a full time online business looking to grow. So I think understanding what is important to you, what do you need to measure to have that growth point, right? So if that's money where you're like, okay, I want to make $10,000, I want to double my income this quarter, I want to whatever, then what do you need to think about that you need to put in place to do that? Or, I'm looking to grow my following or make better content or do something in that realm. Okay, well, what do you need to do? Maybe your expectation is you need to try out 2 or 3 different editing apps and see what works and, test and trial your content. So money is a big thing that obviously it makes our lives easier. We need money to live. It's just the way that it is. But you could have a complete separate goal of, I want to get better at storytelling. I want to get better at writing. I want to connect with my audience more, whatever that is. So understanding what your expectation is, how does it look? How does it feel? How are you going to feel when you've accomplished this? And again, working backwards. Okay, what do I need to set up to get to this? Now, what do I need to do to get to this?
Mhm.
So I think at the end of the day, though, we need to give ourselves some form of consistent schedule that's realistic to what we can do. And then we also have the big responsibility that we need to stick to it, right?
Yeah.
I was a sales manager at a gym. It was a big chain for gyms and stuff. And so people would come in time and time again saying, like, I want to lose weight and I've tried before and it didn't work and that sort of thing. But it's like, okay, so how hard did you try? How consistent did you
Yeah.
stay in order to get to that? What sort of things came up? Like, what were the objectives? Why didn't it get to this? How come you felt this way? And I think that that's a bigger picture. I hope I'm not saying too much because I don't want to overwhelm, but I think it's a bigger picture at not just looking at, okay, what's the next step? It's like, what's the next 5 steps? And then how do I get to each one before that?
Mhm. Mhm. There's so many valuable things you just said in there. I wrote down so many things. I think one super important reality is that we have to measure our progress. And because once you start growing and building this business, it's so easy to not look back at what you have done to get you where you are now. But also, once you look at maybe it is like money you're measuring, which you should be, or maybe it is like your analytics, all of these things that you should be looking at, but taking time to track things and measure them will help you literally know what's going on because something might be going one way, but then you might think that your XYZ is not going very well, but then you look at the numbers and it's like, actually, this is doing really well and people are responding to this and I should like do more of this. But having something you measure and look at can help you manage it better and become better and just know what's going on. Um, so many
Too
good
many
things.
Too many feelings sometimes, and I don't know about you, but my feelings are very inconsistent how I feel about my business and growing my business. Like, one day I love it and it's great, and the other day I'm having, like, a panic attack. So,
Yeah.
I can't
Mhm.
base my measurement on how I feel. I need something tangible, I need something logical to be like, "Okay, realistically, how many hours did I work today or in this month that resulted in my income?" Or with my digital products, right? Like, it is a freebie, but what I really want is to grow my email list, and because Instagram sucks, platforms suck. So I want to have that communication of, being in someone's inbox to provide them with something. What am I going
Mhm.
to do? Well, I can measure how many subscribers I'm getting per how much marketing and time that I'm putting out about my freebie.
Right.
There's no right or wrong, and I think that's going to definitely be different and reflect based on what you want out of different goals and what you're working on your business. But I think it's too hard if you're just going off of emotion and like, "Yay, I feel
Yeah.
good."
It's so important not to measure your content off of emotions, but instead how well it has actually performed. And I do this through tracking monthly analytics from my website, from my email statistics, from my podcast downloads, from my social media. So I have a reference of how things are growing, because what we measure grows. There's some nice quote about that I can never remember, but that's the premise of it. I also have a system where I have a Google Sheet, and it's called my Joy Tracker. And it has a column of the work that I did, as well as did it need me? Meaning, because of my expertise, was it necessary that I perform this action? And did it bring me joy? Because this helps me realize, what work do I not need to be doing? What work can I outsource? What work do I need to be doing? Do I need to be doing more of? So if you are considering outsourcing or just setting up it also can help you figure out like what systems you need to set up, because obviously the podcast, I need to be doing that. I love doing it. It needs to be me. It can't be anybody else. So what systems can I create around the podcast? So looking at the Joy Tracker can help me realize what things I need to consistently be repeating, and how can I make that into a system.
I know. It is like some days I'm like, I think that I should just be a barista. And other days I'm like, I am the main character. And
Yeah.
that's why I take screenshots of everything and like have this feel good folder that I use all the time, because I look back at it to remember like, okay, you actually are only halfway insane, and it's not as, as crazy as you think. But I'm totally like that too. And like, that's so validating too. Like, you would never think when you're scrolling online, like, oh, this person feels these like huge emotional waves when it comes to building their business, but they really do. But I think tackling those tiny things, like you mentioned, comes back to having your schedule and having the freaking discipline to stick to it. And I think you'll only really stick to that schedule you set out for yourself if you like really want it bad enough, is what I've kind of come to realize. Is like, if you really want to change bad enough, then you will do it.
Yep.
And if you
Yep.
don't really want to, then things are going to stay the same. It's so hard. I saw this little like graphic, and if you're watching on YouTube, hi YouTube, I will put it on the screen. But it is this little graphic that said like the pain had like a dip. It was the pain of discipline. It was a little dip, and then it was a huge dip, and it said the pain of regret. And I was like, whoa.
Yes.
Yeah. But I have been trying to create a schedule that moves with me, because it's
Yep.
unrealistic for me, especially a lot of people listening to this who just move around so much. Like, I don't have a home base to create a schedule to stick to. And so like what I literally was working on last night was I wrote down all of my goals for the year, and then like specifically what would need to happen to like, what are the to-dos I need to do to get to that goal. And then from there I did like, okay, this week this is what I have to do to get these goals. And I just need to look at my calendar and put on there like, okay, I have 1 hour of doing XYZ research. I'm going to put that on my calendar on this day because that's when I'm free. Like that has been good so far. We'll see. I don't know. I'll maybe update everyone in a few months, but that helps me, because it's not like, okay, Wednesday at 8 a.m., that is when I do XYZ thing. Because sometimes Wednesday at 8 a.m., I'm in like the boonies. And that is half my own fault. But having at least like, I'm trying to have this schedule that can, like, I know it needs to be done. And then I just need to pick based on that week's life events when that happens. Like, that's good. That's like my realistic approach to these expectations, rather than like, ooh, 6 p.m. on this day. That's like not going to work for me, because who knows where I am. But that was really great. I also wrote down spending money to make money. I think that's like a misconception, because sometimes it's like you can't do everything. You can't do everything, and there's things that you're doing that somebody else could do faster and probably better. And so let them, so that you can do what you need to work on to make more money. But that comes back to that mindset of like, it's so hard to choose between, okay, I need to do the client work because one, there's a deadline, and two, I need to be paid, but also I need to do the work that will not pay me right now, but will pay me more in the future. It's like that.
Right. And again, that comes back to measuring, right? And for myself personally, like I go back and forth with tasks and things. I'm like, should I get a VA? Should I get someone that helps me with my content creation? Should I do this? And I have a hard time spending money in my business where I could probably invest more, especially as a service provider. Like that's the business that I sell. So, but I think that that's good again, where it can come from like a logical, tangible viewpoint and it's not emotional, right? Because again, like we could hate our jobs one day and be like, "Oh, I should just hire someone to do this." But realistically, like, is this going to give you that much time back? Is like that time spending on that person doing XYZ worth it? So I'm probably not the best person for this, but so far I like to go through that messy action and get to a point where I'm like, is this a consistent thing that I'm saying that I need to get this done because this has been on my to-do list for the last month and I haven't even touched it or I haven't even gotten to it or, so be realistic about yourself. And I mean, we both know we work with clients, like we can make lives better. So I know the same feeling that in hiring someone, they can. So
Mhm.
hope
I
that
know.
wasn't a tangent, but
No, I love it. This entire podcast and
yeah,
my entire show is just a tangent. Who let
that's good.
me? Who let me do that? I don't know. Me, I guess.
This is easier said than done, but I think you should try and build something and then get out of it. So you build your business and then you create the systems to let somebody else do it so that you don't have to do all of the things. And I think that starts with outsourcing. And like I just mentioned, the Joy Tracker is a great way to figure out what doesn't need you and what work does need you so that you can then determine, okay, I need to find somebody for this. I would go, if you were just starting out and you're like, I need a VA, I need a virtual assistant to help me do a couple of things. Maybe that's creating Canva graphics or do a little bit of social media research for you or something. I would go to Upwork. I would go to Upwork and find somebody for a couple hours to do that for you. I would also go to your university's career center and see if you can create like a little internship for somebody, because I tried to do that with mine and I don't want to shame my university, but their process was very difficult to get that set up, unfortunately, because I would have loved to be my own intern in the past. Anyway, I think that's a great place to start. College students and Upwork are great places to start with that outsourcing.
Okay, is there anything else you want to say about being a freelancer business owner, building in this world, anything like that that you're like, I need to say this today and I can go on my merry way?
I mean, like, I feel like with this topic, and that's why I was so like, hey, Laura, can we talk about this?
Mhm.
Because any other topics, it's always around camping or how I built my freelance career and how I'm able to travel and do this camping and work. But this is like behind the curtains where we often get caught up in like really unrealistic expectations, or we see someone and we're like, we want their version of success. And so regardless of whatever your journey you're at, where if you're just starting or you're doing it like a side hustle part-time, like what is that end goal? How do you want to look? How do you want to feel? How do you want that sense of accomplishment? And again, and I've said this so many times, but like work backwards, and your journey does not have to look like
Yeah.
anybody else's. Like I think 2025 is going to be a very interesting year. And I think we've seen it through 23, 24 of coming out of COVID and just like a lot of fuck it. Like I'm living for myself. I'm going to embrace the cringe. I want to do what I want to do. And I love this whole movement of non-traditional ways of living, right? Like when I found you on Instagram, I'm like, oh my God, she lives in a rooftop tent. I'm like, that's amazing. And then, so whatever your version of success looks like for you, like just go for it. And if you need help, a lot of people in the freelance community and building an online business, a lot of us are really nice. And so you can send me a DM and be like, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm doing. Like get out of your comfort zone and just do it.
I mean, I literally did that to you. I was like, hi, I have this idea. And you're like, cool, actually, I'm going to blow it up and then help you make it better. And I was like, great. And like the power of asking, oh my God, just like I was actually chatting with a mutual friend last week or something. And she was like, oh, I have this friend who does something similar to me, but I don't know if it would be like, she usually charges people to talk about this thing. And I like just want to ask her about it because she's my friend. And I was like, okay, ask her. Ask her if she would be willing to chat with you for like 15 to 20 minutes about this topic, because the reality is she'll say yes. Like people love to help. People really do, especially in this space, because it's not easy and having somebody else who has been there, done that to tell you what not to do is so helpful. So I was like, just ask. And the power of asking myself has like transformed everything.
If you don't ask, you don't know. So I'd rather just
Yeah,
know than not asking. So
totally. Like the answer is already no if you don't ask. Like,
exactly.
cool. You can live right now with the no answer. So if you ask and it's no again, it's like, great, we're just back to where we were. Or if it's
Yeah.
yes, then
Yes.
something amazing has happened.
But that's a huge mentality shift for people. Like, I'm talking from experience. I'm not talking as an expert. I mean, I still suffer through all those negative emotions of
Yeah.
imposter syndrome and anxiety and all those things, but you're the only one advocating for yourself. So you have to start doing it for you, and then other people will follow, but no one's going to start it for you. So
Yeah, totally. Totally. I think like you got to embrace the main character energy. You have to be the main character. And it can be so fun. It can be so fun. It can also be really anxiety provoking, totally. Yeah. Anyway, what a mess.
but it's great. I honestly, I wouldn't change it. So
No. No. My sister asked me how much someone would have to pay me to go back to working like a real job. I hate when I say real job. I didn't mean to say that, but like that's what kind of it is sometimes. A more traditional job, I suppose. And I'm like, my yearly salary would have to be like $1 million for real. Because the fact that I can like just not do that. Oftentimes when I go into business, like I had to go to, oh my God, I don't even know. It was some government office. Oh, to like
like
get my license or something.
daytime things.
Upstate. Yeah. And I was like, man, I'm just so thankful that that's not me. Like, I don't have to sit there in this desk and like clickety clack forever. I can instead clickety clack for much longer hours for
And
myself.
and also being able to have that freedom and flexibility to do
Mhm.
so. People that do work 9 to 5, like, they probably have a lunch hour, which they want to eat, but instead they have to go down to get their driver's license renewed,
Yeah.
where money's important. Money helps you live and live better and that sort of thing, but time is a really big currency that's important to me. Like, I started valuing my time a lot more through freelancing. So when I look at what my goals are, it's just what am I able to have this lifestyle to save, to put towards retirement, to blah, blah, blah. But then also, like, I have the time that a lot of people don't. And I'm very fortunate that
Mhm.
I've chosen to work towards that. So
Yeah. It's all like a trade off, especially in the beginning. It's like, okay, you do have to really boil it down and look at it on paper of like, okay, if I do this, that means I can't do this, or I will have to work XYZ harder to do that thing. Yeah. And apparently it gets easier. I'm just kidding.
that's
It
it does not.
does. It gets more fun. It's just like the biggest experiment ever. And I think people are so brave to take that experiment. Like, really. Like, you are just experimenting with your own health, wealth, mental health to try things like this. And that is really freaking cool
Yeah.
and really hard. Where would you like people to find you, Emily?
So I don't live, but I'm on Instagram a lot. I really like Instagram because it's just easy to DM and comment in like that community aspect. So I'm at Emily Who Explores. And then if any further information, emilywhoexplores.com. My
Cute.
website is constantly evolving and changing, but that's okay. This is all for the better. But those are the two places that
Oh,
would be.
yay. I'm so glad we could talk about freelancing to business owning because it is a very gray area that requires a lot of behind the scenes. Nobody like yeah, nobody chats about these behind the scenes things enough, and so it's fun to do an episode on just chatting about them rather than like super actionable advice cuz sometimes you need a break from learning.
It's true. It's very true. And thank you for having me. I'm very happy that
Oh my
you even,
gosh.
yeah.
Of course. Anytime you want to dish about anything like that, this is the place to do it. This was such a fun episode with Emily. I feel like I even learned things. I'm excited to listen back at this to just take even more notes. I highly recommend connecting with Emily, checking out her content. She's a great person to know in this travel creator space. And I am actually guesting on her podcast soon. So make sure you follow Emily to check out when that's coming out because it's a little chaotic. in the best way possible. Okay. Happy creating. I'll see you next week.